Today, we're digging into the story of a king who, honestly, had it all. We're talking about massive success, fame, and incredible power. His name was Uzziah, and his reign is this timeless, powerful, cautionary tale about how a leader's greatest strengths can actually become their most devastating weakness. And that really is the question at the heart of it all, isn't it? When does that strength, that ambition, that power cross a line and become a fatal flaw? It's a question that we see played out over and over again through history. So as we go through this, keep that question in the back of your mind because Uzziah's life gives us a pretty dramatic answer. All right, so our story starts with a kingdom on the up and up. A young man named Uzziah becomes the king of Judah, and his reign kicks off with just an incredible amount of promise and potential. And when I say young, I mean really young. He was only 16 years old when he took the throne, and he would go on to rule for an amazing 52 years. Just think about that for a second. That's over half a century of shaping a nation. And in the beginning, that shaping was guided by one very, very clear principle. The source really couldn't be clearer. It lays out this direct cause and effect. As long as Uzziah looked for God's guidance, things went well. The kingdom thrived. This simple idea was the bedrock of all his early success. It was his foundation. And boy, did things go well. Uzziah didn't just keep the kingdom afloat, he took it to a whole new level, building it into a real regional powerhouse. I mean, just look at this list of accomplishments. The sheer scope of what he did is staggering. On the military front, he was an absolute beast, defeating enemies that had been a problem for ages. But he wasn't just a warrior. He was a master builder, fortifying his capital city and investing in infrastructure out in the wilderness. And on top of all that, the man loved agriculture, developing fields and vineyards. By any standard you can think of, he was a remarkably successful and well-rounded leader. And to make all this happen, he had some serious muscle to back him up. We're talking about a massive, well-trained army of over 300,000 men. Now, this wasn't just some local militia. This was a professional fighting force, ready to take on any enemy and cement the king's reputation far and wide. And this detail is so cool because it shows you how smart he was. He wasn't just relying on sheer numbers. He was an innovator. He invested in military tech, these catapult-like machines to defend the walls of Jerusalem. This move made his capital an incredibly tough nut to crack and showed everyone this was a leader at the absolute top of his game. This sentence right here is everything. It perfectly captures the whole story. His fame was a direct result of being greatly helped. But you have to notice that one crucial word at the end, until he became powerful. That's the pivot. That's the moment the entire story turns on its head. The very power he was given became the seed of his own destruction. And here we are. This is that turn. After decades of nothing but success, something inside Uzziah begins to shift. That humility that brought him all his success, it gets replaced by a really dangerous kind of pride. His faithfulness just sours into self-reliance. His reign is really a tale of two completely different halves. In the first half, when he relied on a power greater than himself, he was helped, he was successful. But in the second half, when he started relying on his own power, his own strength, well, that's when pride took over and led directly to his ruin. The success that he built became the very thing that blinded him. So this festering pride, it all comes to a head in one single, fateful, arrogant act. Uzziah starts to believe that his power as king is absolute, that the rules don't apply to him. And so he walks into the temple to do something sacred, something that was never, ever his right to do. He was about to cross a line you just can't uncross. Okay, let's walk through this scene because it is intense. Uzziah, holding a censer, just marches into the holy place to burn incense, a job set aside only for priests. But he doesn't get far. 81 priests, these incredibly brave men, stand up to him. They actually confront the most powerful man in the kingdom and tell him to his face, "You are wrong. This is not your place." And how does Uzziah react? With humility? No. With pure, unadulterated rage. And in that very moment, as he's fuming at them, divine judgment hits. Leprosy breaks out, right there, on his forehead. The fall from grace was as fast and as shocking as the judgment itself. In a single instant, the celebrated king becomes a cursed outcast. The consequences for his pride were immediate, they were permanent, and they would forever redefine his legacy. His final years are just a tragedy. He was forced to live by himself, in isolation. He was banned from the very temple he tried to dominate.
And when he finally died, he wasn't even given the honor of being buried in the royal tombs. Instead, he was buried in a nearby field, his entire life's work overshadowed by one final shameful label. He had leprosy. What a lonely, disgraceful end for a king who was once so great.
And that brings us right back to where we started, with that question. Uzziah reached unbelievable heights of success and power. No one can deny that. But his story forces us to ask, what's the real measure of a legacy? Is it the monuments you build and the battles you win? Or is it the grace and humility you show when you hold that power in your hands? It's a lesson from his life that is just as relevant for us today as it was thousands of years ago.